in the next 10, 15 years, where do you see Americus? Where do you want it to go?
I want sustainable growth, beneficial to all, to the common good, that will raise the standard of living for all. Sustainable growth, not the flash in the pan, not the pie in the sky sort of thing, but actual steady, sustainable growth. A lot of economists would tell you that a community fares better if they promote the development of 10 or 15 or 20 small businesses that open than one great, huge employer.
Welcome to the Americus Podcast, where we pursue what it means to become a next level neighbor, creating a place we enjoy with the people we love. I'm your host, John Schroeder, and today I am with our mayor, Lee Kinnamon, and also our city manager, Diadra Powell. Thank you all so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So I have been thinking about every year just having more and more of our city officials come and spend some time on the podcast. One, because I'm a citizen here. I've lived here for 2 years. And so I'm still learning the structures. And I've noticed that even cities that have some of the same jobs don't always have the same job descriptions and expectations. And so each city has its unique way of building it itself. And so I am thankful that you're here. I hope that, again, that this is a benefit for not just me, but for others in the city as well. So again, thank you so much for your time, for your sacrifice, for fighting for people that may not even know that you're doing that, and then taking on all of that at the same time. Because what you want is you want to try to fight for everyone here. And I know that might be very difficult. So let's talk a little bit about that first. So we're going to kind of go into a little bit of your job descriptions, expectations, help me as a citizen, as a shareholder, better understand what you do. Then we'll go into a little bit about your personal lives and kind of what that looks like and what you value. And then at the same time, we'll also look into what your job descriptions actually do here in the city. So let's go ahead and step right into that. So I would love to hear what falls into your job description as a mayor and also as a city manager.
Well, you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. As mayor, the ordinance defines and charter defines what my job description is. And so basically, the overarching title is chief elected official. Which means that under our charter, I don't engage in execution of policy in the strictest sense. Only on occasion do I actually carry out policy. I am sort of the forward face of the city. If you think of it in terms of the national government, our president serves as both head of state and the chief executive, head of the government. In the case of the mayor, in a strong city manager, weak mayor system, which is more or less what we have under our charter, the mayor serves as sort of that head of state position. Not altogether a figurehead, because I do have responsibilities that go beyond just merely being a figurehead. But I do not engage in day-to-day operational issues. I'm not talking to the fire chief and saying, have you changed the oil in the fire truck or whatever? I mean, I don't get at the granular level on those things. Thank goodness. So the chief elected official is responsible first and foremost for presiding over city council meetings. Which is the elected legislating body of the city of Americus. And there's 6 members. Generally, I'm allowed to vote on any issue, but generally the only time I vote is to break a tie. I'm not actually required to do that under the law, but that is my prerogative to do so as the chief elected official and the presiding officer. So we follow Robert's rules, and I have to be conversant well enough with those that I can run a meeting and maintain decorum, and do so legally, because there's a lot of law that we have to know and deal with. So that's a primary responsibility, and those are codified, you might say. They're written in the code and in the charter, those things that I have to do. I do have some appointments I can make, individual appointments that I do not have to have ratified by the city council. The members of the Housing Authority Commission, the commissioners on our local housing authority, are my appointees. Okay. So there's some things that are written specifically in that I have to do. But overall, I'm kind of the, as I say, sort of the forward face, the person who greets, who goes to events, and you know, you're
in a lot of pictures there, Lee.
Right. And that's kind of that's sort of the role of the mayor, is to be that person. Not to say that the city manager doesn't do a lot of that too, but that's sort of because, you know, the city manager has to be running. Somebody has to be running the day-to-day operation of the city, and can't be at every event. So, and then of course I meet with dignitaries that visit, and you know, a lot of that is a very enjoyable thing to do, and it's stuff that I like to engage in. So when we have people looking here, say, to place a business or industry here, I would be involved in those discussions. City manager as well, but I'm usually included and involved in those types of things. So but I don't have. Here's the thing: I want people to understand. I'm not the person to call to, you know, complain about a city employee, or to say, you know, this didn't get done, or I want this done, necessarily. I mean, I do welcome all calls, and certainly can direct the person to the correct department. But as far as engaging with the citizen in day-to-day operations of the city and being able to say, oh, I'll take care of that tomorrow, or whatever, that's not really within the charter, the scope of the charter. So what happens is, when a citizen calls a member of the city council or me, the mayor, we write it up typically in an email, and then we forward to the city manager, and often we might copy the department head that's involved, so they get the information. But it then falls on Diadra to make sure, unfortunately for her, to make sure that those things actually get done. And then she'll follow up with me, with the citizen, and so forth. But and that's an important distinction, I think, for citizens to understand, is that I'm not the day-to-day operations manager for the city of Americus. There is a very capable city manager who handles those issues, and then will handle them when we bring them to our attention. And then just general oversight. I mean, you know, we do, as elected officials, have to generally oversee and provide oversight for the city of Americus, representing the citizens and taxpayers. Fiduciary responsibility is one of the big ones. So we have to be really aware of the budget, and where the money's coming from, and where it's going, and be sensitive to that, because we have to answer to, as we all do, whether you're an elected or an appointed or you know, a paid official. We have to, whatever our job, we have to be very sensitive to our fiscal responsibilities, because we're not using our money.
That's right.
This is the money. You're the shareholders.
That's right.
Right. So we're answerable to the shareholders and their investment in the city.
That's right.
So
now this is a 4-year thing, right?
It's a 4-year term.
Yes.
And awesome. There are no term limits. Only those that are self-imposed.
All right. I got you. All right, Diadra. So you get a lot of emails. That's what I'm hearing. Your job description is opening up your email list. No. Tell us a little bit about the city manager position.
So the city manager role is one that is appointed by the mayor and council. That particular role is day-to-day operations. And so just to be, I guess, transparent and try to, you know, help listeners to understand, when we say day-to-day operations, that includes managing the department heads, the police chief, the fire chief, public works director, our HR, our finance. We have about 20 plus departments. Some of them have, one leader may have more than one department. And then the mayor mentioned the budget. So managing the budget on a day-to-day basis, and making sure that the department heads are watching their budgets. Because once the mayor and council adopts the budget, it's up to us to ensure that we're following through, that we are managing those, being fiscally responsible, basically. Making sure that we're managing and using the monies as the mayor and council has said, or because when they adopt it, they're saying these are our priorities for the year based on what we've said, or the other needs for the coming year.
Okay.
And so that is a lot of what I do all day. We respond to our citizens if they email, if they call, if they come in. We are responding to them. Sometimes the response that they get may not be the response that they want, but I tell our team, and I believe in being authentic. We're not sugarcoating it. We're giving them the real answers and making sure that we're treating our citizens with dignity and respect. And for me, that is the most important thing, is that, when they come to our office, they have just as much right there as we do. And we should treat them with dignity and respect. And I believe that we do that.
Good. So this is not just tens of people. This is hundreds of people that you're probably meeting with, talking with, engaging with throughout each and every week. Definitely thousands a month. So
definitely for the city manager.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is
probably not quite that many for us individually.
Okay. So lots of meetings, your time is really trying to be allocated the best possible because there are so many people to talk to. And you do have a pipeline, but you also want to leave that open. And so sometimes that urgent citizen or maybe business or maybe organization needs a little bit more attention. And so I've always found it very difficult to try to use the word balance. Sometimes it's just whatever's urgent and need in front of us.
The priority.
And then it's a season, right? It's a little bit more of a season than just a balance.
That's
like,
right.
hey, in this season, we really need to focus here.
That's
We're going to
right.
get there, which is very difficult to make because once you make that decision, then it does feel unbalanced and you have to process that with people as well. And so thank y'all so much for meeting with people, for caring for people. And then again, trying to figure out how specifically Americus functions in a way that's healthy for Americus, because what works in Macon or Thomasville may not work specifically in Americus.
That's right.
It's hard to be able to capture the essence of maybe what they're doing, but uniquely here with the people that we have. So thank you all so much for that, for again, dedicating your time into that. So let's step into a little bit about just more like who you are as a person. I think it's very important for us as people, again, not to just see you as a mayor and a city manager. You're supposed to be doing things for me, but you're actually people who have lives, who have values, who want to not just present their best in gifting, but their best as a person. And so I want to give you guys an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself. Now, Lee, we've had recently on the podcast, one of our first actually. But I would love for you,
so
if you wouldn't mind.
To answer. You can tag that episode.
That's right. I'll just attach that.
This link.
Absolutely. But yeah, give me a short, description, 2 to 3 minutes, maybe, just of a little bit about who you are as a person as you kind of step into this role that you're not just a mayor.
Well, I think the thing that defines who I am, at least who I am now, maybe it didn't when I was 20 years old, but maybe it did, I don't know, is relationships with other people. It's about building friendships and relationships. I have, of course, I taught school for about 30 years here in Sumter County, and I learned very quickly that whether it's faculty or administrators or students or parents, that everything hinged on the relationship, whether you have their trust and whether you trust them in some cases, whether it's the administrator or your colleague, your co-teacher or whatever. So the relationship is, to me, foundational to everything else we do. And that can mean very particular personal relationships that I have with, with individuals, like with the city manager, or it can be the notion of the relationship between the city and our citizens. What is that relationship looking like? And to take the temperature of that relationship to see if it is healthy. And if it's not, then what can we do to improve that relationship? So for me, it's an overarching sort of theme, maybe a paradigm that I use when working with others is I invest time in that relationship.
Yeah.
And council members, a lot of phone calls talking personally with council members and with staff. And it's important for us to know each other. And especially now, and you've said this, that we're in this rather difficult and divisive season in our life, civic life, and in our life within society as our outward lives. We're very much divided in so many ways, and many unnecessarily. We shouldn't be divided in those ways. So bridging those divisions, building the relationships, and moving people away from total self-interest into a vision for the common good.
Yeah.
And that has been another theme, and that's all about the relationship. Trust that I'm not in a zero-sum game and that I'm trying to take something from you. It's a position of fear and not a sense and scarcity and not a sense of abundance, which, my faith really gives me that foundation and an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity mindset. So that's starting with relationships and building from there is kind of what defines my approach, maybe.
Yeah.
As a person and as a leader.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee. That's good. Yeah. Deidre.
Yes, your question again?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. What kind of how do you define yourself as Deidra?
That's a great question. One that I really don't think about a lot. But I do think that, when I think about who I want people to see me as, a Christian first and foremost. I'm a mom, a wife. My family is important to me. And for the employees, I'm always a listening ear. I believe that the employees know that I'm available if something's not right or they feel like a process is not being followed, but they also know that their department head is going to hear about it. So there's no coming to me, complaining about something and the leader of that department is not going to know about it. I believe that I interacted with enough citizens that they know that I'm available. My team is available. I tell people this all the time. I love this city, and the individuals that are here, and that live here and are vested in the community. The differences that we have are the things that make us great. That's the thing that distinguishes Americus from other locations, because of the people that are here and the difference in those people, in those individuals. The other part of that is that the differences are okay as long as we can recognize them, understand what they are, and agree to work together. Because at the end of the day, the only way that this city that we all say we love is going to grow is if we learn how to work together, how to accept the differences. And sometimes I think it's good to ask for clarity. I like for people to ask for clarity if they don't quite understand what transpired, because a lot of times there are things out there that are not true that we don't respond to say it's not true. And so the clarity part of that is one of the things that I like. I like to be clear about it. I try to do things fair and equitable. One of the things that I shared, we didn't have this mayor at the time, but one of the things I shared when I was hired as the finance director for this city over 10 years ago, is that my integrity is important to me, and my name is is mine. And so I came to the city, my integrity was intact. And if by chance I leave this city, I intend for my integrity to still be intact. And so, I mean, that kind of sort of shapes who I am. Very, very, very principled. I believe in treating people right is real simple to me. You treat people right. It doesn't matter if you where you came from, where you are, what your economic status is. You still have to treat people right because they're still people.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah, it's very difficult in this season, especially again, and I'll just go to social media because part of the issue with social media is it draws our attention sometimes to issues that are not necessarily our issues, but they're out in the world somewhere, and then we pull them into our issues and they make them issues. But we're already dealing with our own issues in a sense, right? And but we also don't have a lot of time because we are all so busy. We got our hobbies, we got our relationships. So we're trying to keep all of that together. And there are things that are underneath the surface that we're not getting a chance to really talk about. But the only time we talk about them is when we're at our highest emotional states. And that's a very difficult thing to do because now we're not having a sober conversation where we can actually really get through the issues. They only come up because they're settled in. They only come up when our emotions are at its highest. And social media helps promote that and push that. And so it's a very difficult time for us as citizens to figure out when can we talk about very highly emotional things in the most sober way possible so that we can best collaborate together. And again, the only time that really happens is when something bad happens or something difficult happens, and we're already there. And so
that's why the relationship
yes,
being built prior to those incidents is so critically important.
Yeah.
Because if we already know one another and trust one another, especially across the leadership in the community, then when things do happen, and they will,
yes,
we don't have to introduce ourselves to each other.
Right.
And we've been working together, and we can trust each other.
And we have to be willing to listen. I think I think we have to be willing to listen. And I know a lot of our citizens, that's part of their concern is that they don't feel like they're being heard. We have to be willing to listen. One of the things that I believe we need to do better or working to do better at is putting information out. Because we're not putting any information out, it's being created. So if you don't tell the story, somebody else is going to create the story. And so we're working really hard now, realizing that, and I'm not a social media person, but working really hard to stand up the city's social media page, as well as updating and upgrading our website so that it is user friendly. And so we recognize those things, and we're trying to do better with that.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to. Well, she and I really can't respond. For a variety of reasons, ethical, legal, just in terms of the practical nature of our work. But a lot of times it's an ethical or a legal issue that really prevents us from responding in terms of the criticism that's leveled against us on social media. It would be inappropriate for us to do that and to engage in that kind of. And I know that it happens in other jurisdictions sometimes. But I think the one thing that I see here that puts us, I think, in very good standing is that we have not done that. We really don't see our elected officials, or it's certainly within the city anyway, or the staff really engaging in that way. Because that is divisive and destructive, really. So we're all eager to create that narrative that Diadra's talking about, that is our story, because we haven't really told the story. And when you don't tell your own, you surrender the field to everybody else. Yeah, they create the narrative for you. Yeah.
So
that's we're good. Real eager for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, another question I would love to ask, again, just about you, and then we're going to kind of step into a little bit more of the specific things that you guys are doing throughout the community.
We kind of jumped into that. I think.
Yeah, no, that was great. No, that was great. Because I mean, I love to hear that, because we're talking about our hearts and our values.
Right.
You know, again, there might be a plan that will work and for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years, but then it won't work the next year.
That's
and
right.
so it's really about the values that we want to continue to put forward. And so this is a really great question, I think, when it comes to just your value and who you are. But what are people most likely to misunderstand about you?
Maybe sometimes that I don't take a position immediately, or I'm not, because I don't react.
Mm-hmm.
I work very hard not to be reactionary to things. I think it doesn't benefit an individual to do that, to be reactive. But some people misunderstand or misconstrue that to be weakness. I've had people actually say that to me in recent days, that you're inaction, or you're not being vocal, or you're not condemning, or you're not. No, I'm not. And I probably won't be. I probably won't be. Because I tend not to be a reactive person. And I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I really am not. I try real hard not to be reactive. But again, I think people misunderstand that or misidentify that as a weakness. I personally believe it is a strength. And I wish that more people could be less reactive. Think before you speak. Certainly think and ponder and cogitate before you act. A lot of people take action. We're a culture now that the mantra of the culture today tends to be more is better and faster is better. People want what they want. They want more of it, and they want it now. And those are not necessarily conducive to the good of the community overall, that common good I mentioned before. When we are so insistent upon our way and demanding that our way be met, sometimes we do great damage to the common good that ultimately hurts ourselves. So that's the kind of message maybe for. I think the misunderstanding is that I'm somehow weak, which I don't think I am. But if people choose to characterize me that way, that's okay too. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not so wrapped up and ego driven that I take, offense at that.
That's
what
good.
Is it? What did we hear today? Taking things personally or something? Q-tip. Quit taking it personal. Quit taking it personal. Yeah.
That's good.
And that's that's sort of a good thing because people, my mother told me one time, she said, what people think of you is none of your business. And that's a good thing to remember. What other people think about you is really not your business. Do what's right. Do what you know you need to do. Do your job. And don't worry about what other folks think about you.
I've noticed that when people ask questions and when people criticize, is they're doing it because they actually care about something. And that's actually a good thing. We just got to figure out how to do it together. But if people are not asking questions and they're probably not engaged.
That's true. But I would argue that it needs to be done in the right way.
Yeah, of course. I'm saying that there is, at the deeper level, there is a sense that someone says, I care about the city. I care about where we're going. And you need that, but you need it in the positive way, right? You need it to actually say, well, let's do this together. And like you said, some people have to lose so that everyone else can win. Like there's give and take. That's very difficult. So
compromise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're not very compromising right now.
No, it's very,
We're in a place where we're not really focusing on that too much. Compromise is seen as weakness. Right? Building consensus is now characterized or mischaracterized as being weak. And I disagree fundamentally with all of that.
Yeah.
Our society has adhered, has held together because of consensus building and compromise, and the things that that we have today are the result of all of that.
Yeah.
Of those good characteristics. But today it's seen as you're selling out, or you're not being strong, or you're not defending what. I'm just not so certain that's the way forward. I think that we need to learn again how to, as Diadra said, listen to each other and be willing to give and take.
Yeah.
And not be so stubbornly clinging to what we think is right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Diadra, what about you? What do you think people most misunderstand about you?
That I know everything.
Yeah.
I think I do know a lot about local government. I've been in it for almost 20 years. But each city is different. But the one thing that I even with the idea that I should have all the answers or that I know everything, one thing that I have always done is study. So I'm in the ordinances. I'm in the adoption of the budget and looking at, what we've adopted, what we can do. So I, even though it may seem like I know everything, it's not that I know it, is that I'm studying, I'm putting in the work behind the scenes to make sure that if the question's asked, I have an answer. Yeah. That's one thing. The other part of it is that I am, I have this outgoing personality, but inside I'm really as timid can be. Yeah.
So that's good. That's good. I love that. My wife, she her personality is she has a very anxious personality. But the great thing is that when she is courageous, I know that is out of deep conviction and strength. Because for a non-anxious person, being courageous is not that difficult.
Right.
Right. So it's really an amazing thing. So, well, let's go through a little bit of our questions, just kind of on your role specifically, what's going on in the city. So that again, as a citizen, one of the things you mentioned was being able to clearly communicate. So what am I supposed to be doing as a citizen? What are the big goals for our city in a sense? Like, where are we going? What's the vision for our city? Because I want to make sure that I'm engaged in those things. And so even we had Kwan and Jennifer here, and I was saying, hey, how do I get involved into the things that are going on, whether it's First Fridays or the programs that we're doing? I need to be a citizen who is actually engaged in the communication. And I told him, I said, if I got to get on 4 Facebook, things to figure out what's going on, I still have to take responsibility in that. But as you guys are communicating that responsibility, we need to make sure that it's clear and so that we can all get together. Whether it's a teacher or a lawyer or an engineer, whatever it is, if it's just a normal everyday citizen, how do we make this city better? And the best thing to do is to figure out what is our vision for the city, where are we going? And let me go ahead and continue to line up with that as well. So I'll ask you first, Lee, how do you prioritize the needs and the concerns of various neighborhoods within Americus? And what steps have you taken to ensure equitable distribution of resources and opportunities across the city?
The process of prioritization, of course, falls not just on my shoulders, but on the city council. So it's a collective decision. So, for example, there's quite a bit of discussion about the condition of streets. And when we look at that, each council member represents his or her district and is principally concerned with the condition of streets and infrastructure within that district. However, is also responsible for the overall condition of the city, streets as a whole. But we have to remember that the people who elect that individual council member reside within a particular district. So this goes to the issue you mentioned of balancing the needs of the whole, the many, against the needs of the few. And it's one of the classic dilemmas of governance, whether you're at the national level or state or local level. How do you balance the needs of the the few, the rights and needs of the few against the rights and needs of the many. In terms of the city council, we deliberate, we receive information from staff concerning, in this example, city streets. We have a certain amount of money that's allocated from state monies, sometimes federal highway money, but usually it's a state funding that comes to us called LMIG. And then we have our own monies, and sometimes T-SPLOST monies can be used as well. We have various ways to fund these things. So we have to look at that. And then, honestly, it then gets into the struggle over what is the priority. Now, a reasonable person would probably recognize that a street like, let's say, Felder Street, which sees, or Tripp Street, those two streets see tremendous traffic day in and day out. They're thoroughfares, they're major thoroughfares. And could argue that, reasonably argue that those rise in priority because of the number of vehicles using those streets on a daily basis. So, but it's a very difficult sell because, you know, while we all use Felder Street typically to get to Walmart, right? And we all complain about the potholes that crop up on Felder Street, and there are potholes. We also have people, our citizens, who live in say, the Rose Avenue area or Armory Drive area or someplace like that, and their residential street might also have a lot of issues. So they're complaining to their council member about the condition of that street. Everyone seems to be complaining about potholes and the condition of things on the major thoroughfares. So again, it is a balancing act. It's about having to look at the limited number of dollars that can be allocated for street paving, looking at who's making the decisions, which would be mayor and council, sort of directing the spending with advice from staff, and then trying to balance all those competing demands and interests so that we get the best possible outcome. And to be quite honest, it's not easy. So citizens need to understand that when we are making decisions, we are often looking not at a particular street, address, or neighborhood, but we're looking at the overall condition of the city. And that holds true for a lot of things, not just street paving, but lots of things, because we have to, and I in particular, as the person elected by the entire city, I have to look at a bigger picture, as does the city manager, than one particular district. So sometimes those conflicts in equity, issues of equity and priority are difficult to resolve. And sometimes they don't get resolved adequately. I'm just being honest about that. I don't think you would disagree. I think sometimes they simply do not get resolved adequately because we have a small pot of money, comparatively speaking, and a lot of need. So it is a challenge. And I don't know if I answered the question.
No, that's good.
I'm trying to give you insight into how it works, how it actually works.
No, that's
because ideally, I remember when I first came in, I told Diadra, I was like, well, we should be looking at the traffic counts and we ought to be looking at condition. I was being rational, right? I was looking at it the way, you know, my teacher self might have looked at, you know, just being rational, look at the spreadsheet, see what the numbers say. You know, you've got basically everybody in the county using Felder Street at some point. It's one of those major thoroughfares. We ought to be but it doesn't in reality work out that way. Sometimes it does, but and I think you want your street. You know, you live on Taylor Street. And you want to see things happen on Taylor Street.
I do. I want to see slower cars on Taylor Street.
Yes, you do.
Man, there's racers out there. But I don't mind the noise of the vehicles as much. I just know when they go really fast, it gets louder and louder and louder. But no, I think that's good. And we even talked about, as you're working through those, I mean, because they're stories, there are people that are asking questions. And sometimes, again, I'm just going to be honest, as a citizen, I might not speak. I'm 2 years into it, so I might not be, an Americus citizen in this way. But there's things that I get really passionate about for 1 week, and then I completely forget about it for 3 months. And then I see work on another street and go, what about the things that I cared about? But I kind of gave up, kind of work. I'm working in and out based on my time and my scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Of my priorities and my values. But is there any form of communication from you or from the departments about, okay, we want to work on this street because we believe that this is the best time. This is going to take 3 months, 6 months. It's going to take 2 years for this particular project to be complete. But after that, we know that we're going to be probably working in this particular area next time, and then in this particular area next time. So for me as a citizen, when I'm walking, my frustration might be, well, okay, they didn't start on my street, but I see my street coming in maybe a year, 2 years from now. And that kind of settles me. It should settle me a little bit because, again, I can't build a narrative because it already is there.
So what you're talking about is the flow of information.
The flow of information.
And that goes back to
that,
like I said, we've not done a really good job. We're working every day, working hard every day to make sure that quality of life, good quality of life for all of our citizens, no matter what their economic standing is. But what we don't do is tell the story. And so we do a lot of work. A lot of things take place in our council meetings where we're talking about, these are the streets that we're recommending. The interim public works director and I actually have a meeting, I believe it's scheduled for tomorrow. And the topic of our discussion is going to be selecting roads that can be paved. We have monies that are available. We are going to try to put together a plan to make a recommendation to our mayor and council. Here are the streets that we believe we can get done with this amount of money. And then move forward from there. There are problems in every last one of our districts, regardless of where the district is. There's some problems in every district. But what we look at from a holistic standpoint is where can we make the biggest impact? And you are right that, when you go to, I drive down Taylor Street too. I drive down a lot of the streets. And so I'm the one when it's raining hard, I'm driving down Lee Street and I'm calling Public Works saying, we need barrels here. We need barrels. So I know, because as a manager, I own that. I cannot, to me, it's a disservice to the community and it's not right, period. To pass by a street that is overflowing with water or to have a hole in the road that I know is going to cause damage and not call somebody to say, we need to put a barrel here. We need to fix this. We need to do something. And it may not get done that day, but it actually, because I try to be conscious of the time that the manager that is managing that team has a plan for the day. But we need to do a better job, again, of making sure that the information is out there because it's on the agenda. So once we created that agenda item and we're saying these are the 15 streets we're paving, we know what the 15 streets are. So it shouldn't take that much more effort for us to put it on the website. And so that's one of the things that we're looking to do is to make sure that our website, because we spent some money to upgrade our website. It's really nice. It's not actually up and running now, but we, can see it on the back end. So we spent monies to make sure that this is a communication tool for our citizens. And we really want to make sure that we're putting the information out there that our citizens want us to put out there. That's right.
Communicate.
Yes.
That's right.
Because the website's going to have a way for citizens like yourself to fill in something, that'll be information that we can gather and know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So, but Deidre's exactly right. We have not, and this predates us. I mean, this goes way back. The website is really old.
It's like a Wix word.
It's something. It's very primitive and very old, very much out of date. It's difficult for staff to edit, update, provide new information. It's complex to do that, and there may be only a few people who know how to do that, who can do that. So it's just been something that has, it has not been a priority. I think the current council, Diadra certainly, our city clerk, we all, the senior leadership, they all see it as a top priority for the very reasons you're suggesting, that we're not being transparent the way we want to be. We can't be because we don't have a way to, and we can't and we can't get on a Facebook page and comment to citizen complaints the way, right, your frustration might lead you to post something, and then but I can't get in there and make those comments. First of all, I can't speak for the city unless the council has actually voted. We have the approved list or whatever. I can't make pronouncements like that for the city and say, well, we will do this, because the we is not me, right? Yeah, I'm not the we. The we is the team. Right. So the problem is, and citizens honestly don't always understand that, and they're frustrated by that. Even in the city manager's case, she can't always make promises and commitments because it would depend on us. So, and I know that builds frustration, but the more transparent we are about how the city operates, the better. Now, Diadra did something that's really good. The Americus 101, the Citizen 101 class that was offered starting in January,
and it was 6 or 8 weeks.
Excellent. Yeah.
And we had citizens that signed up, and they participated. They learned about government. They learned some things. They had the opportunity to ask questions to all of our leadership team and get responses. And we're also doing a chat with the manager, and that's the first Monday, I think, of every month for 3 or 4 months. So just trying to make sure that we are starting to be a little bit more engaged with our citizens if they want to participate. Yeah. So it's open, to all of them.
That's good. A community advisory board, which I started, had made a promise to do that. And we're going to be bringing that to
our community
development office. Will begin handling that so that it's sustainable, whether I'm here or not. But regardless, this is the other thing that we have to work toward. These good things that she and I and members of council do, it should never be dependent on an individual or a personality or, we tend to, in leadership today, get fixated on individuals. Well, this person is doing this. Well, we need to move away from that to the institution is doing this, that we are setting up institutional goals and priorities. Strategic priorities. They're going to outlast the two of us. That whether we're here or not, we've set up systems and processes like the Citizen Advisory Board, like the educational outreach in the 101 class, like the website and ongoing social media presence. Those are things that are not dependent on us as individuals. If you don't do that, if we don't build for that sort of continuity of service and mission, purpose, all of those things need to continue, whether I'm here or not.
Yeah. Right. And I think our department heads, they are the ones who carry out, if we ask for something or if the council votes on something, the department heads are the ones who are making sure that those things get done. Yes. And so certainly don't want to not include them in the successes of the city, because what we have because of them. When the streets are swept, our guys are out there sweeping. When there's a water leak, they're fixing it, and that's rain, shine, sleet, or snow. When the police get a call, they're moving. Fire gets a call, they're moving. And so certainly it's the entire city that's working in the same direction. Our priority is to make sure that our citizens have a good quality of life, that they are safe, or my priorities, I will say. And I know that those are the same priorities that our council has, that they're safe, that, our quality of life continues to get better. And a part of that is looking at the streets, as you mentioned, didn't want to not come back to that. That is a part of it. And just like Lee Street, we've been, fighting for Lee Street for the last 4 or 5 years, and GDOT has listened, and they are willing to put some monies into making some repairs to Lee Street, especially at the Lee and Church Street intersection, because it is flood. If you've driven through there when it rains. And so we're going to, in collaboration with the Georgia Department of Transportation, are working to make sure that particular intersection and some other intersections that connect to it are repaired. That is going to cost probably somewhere between 1.5 and $2 million, just that fixing that. And so that's the other part of it, is that road repairs are super expensive.
Yeah. Lot of need to look at the particular project, make sure everything's good underground, what's underneath it, what's above it, what's around it. It's not just, hey, we just need to fix this. It's we actually have to bring in the red tape. There's a lot of people that get involved, especially when you're talking about state funding or even federal funding. They have certain requirements that's necessary, which makes the project a little bit more robust and calls for more people to come in.
So for clarity's sake, and on that very issue, for people to understand that while we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 miles of paved surface that we're responsible for within the city of Americus, in other words, enough miles of paved surface of streets to drive from here to Atlanta on. If that gives you any idea of the responsibility and how much money it takes to maintain that and what's underneath it. And I'm grateful that you mentioned the infrastructure that's out of sight, that's beneath the streets. It makes no sense for us to spend taxpayer money paving a street when within a matter of months we know we're going to be having to dig it up to create improvements in stormwater or in a sewer line or in decaying water structure. So we can't, there's a lot more that goes into it than just we're just not paving streets. And I know the citizens think that, and I get that. And I share the first, I drive on the same streets. She drives on the same streets. So a lot of times I get the sense that they must think I live in another city. Like I don't live, I live on Church Street, and Church Street is a heavily traveled, narrow, old street with lots of infrastructure issues documented. Difficult infrastructure, old infrastructure, not unlike a lot of our other streets.
It's just like, I'll say this, just like Patterson is another one of those streets that I had an individual that mentioned Patterson Street to me. And so I said, it's on our list. But when, and I rode over there and I told him this, and I said, let me verify what I said, that we have a lot of the road is made for cars and trucks, and you have a lot of commercial vehicles that are on residential roads. So when you have commercial vehicles on roads that are built for residential, you have a lot of problems. And so, I mean, even like Taylor Street is a cut through. It really is. And so you have vehicles on Taylor Street that really should not be on Taylor Street. And
we do police that. So to be clear, that the chief has told both of us that they are enforcing when trucks that are not supposed to be on our streets like Taylor, that's being enforced. So
they're trying.
They're trying, but there's there's a big city.
Absolutely.
Now, of those roads, though, to be clear for citizens to understand, anything that is a state highway is outside of our jurisdiction. We're not supposed to even fix you're not supposed to fix a pothole or anything. You
can't even put a sign up without their permission.
You have to have GDOT on board with that before you do anything. And that includes our major thoroughfares. Lee Street, south of downtown, right? US Highway 280, 30, 49, 27, and the list goes on. Now, the state the good news is, while they have control, they also have the responsibility of paving those streets. So it removes that burden from us, which we're grateful for, because imagine if we had to pave all of that. It would really be difficult. It already is difficult with what we do have. But we're fortunate. But things like timing of traffic lights, citizens need to understand that we don't have jurisdiction even over the timing of traffic lights on those, at the intersections on those highways. That has to be done in concert with GDOT. We can't just go and adjust traffic lights. We get in trouble doing that kind of thing. We can't. I don't even think we have the ability to do it.
Well, other than streets, what are some of those common things? I mean, we don't have to walk through them and how you're processing and categorizing them, but what are some other things, the kind of the top three to five things that you feel like are always very important to citizens, and you guys are working through, on a monthly basis, trying to figure out how to prioritize those?
So one of the things that is a priority for me is everybody pays a utility bill, and so we're looking at. For me, I'm looking at ways that citizens are able to handle business outside of the normal business hours. So our utility department is open from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And so the average working person at 8 o'clock is at work.
Yeah.
And at 5 o'clock, they're just getting off from work. Certainly not enough time to get to downtown to handle business if you want to handle it in person. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is putting a payment kiosk at the utilities at the utility building, so that our citizens have that as an option. It just gives them an extra option, or to me, less stress for that working mom who is trying to make sure that her utility bill is paid.
It's jingling the door now. Right,
exactly. And so that's one of the things. I am looking at ways that that our council, for our council to say, okay, this makes sense. Because if I'm presenting something to them, it has to make sense for them to invest the time, the energy, and the money. And so to me, that is one of the things that, is an easy fix that makes sense for them. Another way that information, for me, it's all about information flow, because I think a lot of the conversations are because the information is not out there. And so I'm focused on making sure that we are communicating in different ways, because let's just, the reality is they may not look at a council meeting. They may not tune into a council meeting. They may not read the newspaper, but they certainly are checking websites, and there's certainly, kiosks that's right down, the individuals in that sweet spot, that 20 to about 30, 35. They're all about, self-help, doing it themselves, put my money in there, give me my receipt, I can go home, types of things. And so that's kind of sort of what I'm looking at. We actually have a kiosk that we put at City Hall that provides information on, you can put in, that you're standing here and it'll tell you how to get to a specific place. So just being more modern, should I say, I think that's what I'm getting to, being more modern. That is going to help us. We also want to look at ways to connect or continue to connect with GSW and the students there. We were actually sat on a panel for the student government, which was really a good panel. And they had a lot of ideas and things. So incorporating that generation and letting them know that they have a voice in government too, and that we're listening to them and we want their feedback. Good feedback, whether we like it or not, it's all feedback. And there are some valid points that are being made by our citizens, and we recognize that. And we want them to know that we recognize that. And though it seems like we're slow moving, we are methodical, and we're trying to make the best decision for them.
Yeah, right. That's good.
And balance again, because if the reality is that if she and I were if it was all, let's imagine we're all based on the two of us, we could get all kinds of things. We would be two people and we say, well, let's do this tomorrow. It would just be the two of us. But that's not how government works. We have to balance the interest of 6 council districts and 6 council members. And you have these department heads who are experts in their areas who inform her decisions and mine and the members of council. So it's not, there's a greater complexity to it. And I go back to the 101 class. I think that was the genius of that, is that it helps people understand the complexity of what it is we're doing. And until you get involved with it, you don't always understand. On the modernization theme, some other things that are kind of pending before council now, tag reader cameras. The county's done this, and I know we know about the speed zones in the school school zones and the tag readers and all of that there. But we're talking about from a public safety standpoint in terms of identifying vehicles, wanted persons, people with warrants, suspicious vehicles without proper registration. entering our community. The sheriff has implemented some of this already, and the council is moving in the direction. It's being discussed now, so I can't say, oh, we're actually going to do it. The Housing Authority has already in a joint application, grant application with our police department in the city. They've already implemented some of these camera systems within the Housing Authority properties. It is a modern approach to multiplying our police force. So we talk about force multiplication.
Yeah.
It's a way to do that by providing intelligence to the law enforcement community. And they share this information. This information's in a large network. It's only used if it's needed. It's not in violation of people's privacy rights and that sort of thing. But it could be beneficial to us, and we're looking at that as a way to help stem the tide of the violence that's been taking place in the community, and help us identify suspects and maybe head some things off before they actually occur.
Yeah.
To behave in a preemptive way rather than a reaction.
That's good. That's good. So, I mean, you're talking about infrastructure. I mean, you're talking about modernization.
Right.
You're talking about implementing healthy systems for crime rates and to deal with violence those ways. I mean, you're talking about education, bringing in the school systems in and let them invest more into our community, and we invest more into them.
Yes.
So these are top level priorities that, in a large scale, everyone's kind of trying for that same pie, and you're trying to do the best that you can to address every single issue and communicate that issue as clearly as possible.
And we're a college town. What we need to remember is that, and I think that was to her point, is that have we done everything we can do to maximize the benefit to Georgia Southwestern of a healthy partnership with the city and vice versa, and South Georgia Tech?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We're a double college town.
Yeah, it really is.
So both South Georgia Tech and Georgia Southwestern, are we doing everything we can do to build a relationship as a college town with the two colleges?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. We're both attending the Georgia Municipal Association convention in Savannah. And that's a good use of our training budget because we take classes. And one of the classes I'll be engaged in while I'm there is on how to be a good college town.
Yeah. What
does a good college town look like? And what are other towns in the state doing, like Milledgeville and LaGrange and other places, Thomasville, there are a bunch of them. What are they doing to maximize the benefits to both the schools and to the communities themselves? And I'm just not satisfied that we're doing everything we need to do. I know you're not.
Yeah.
I think we can do more for us to benefit from that.
Yeah.
And for them to benefit from us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, creating, let's just say, for lack of a better term, incentives for college students, incentives for businesses, incentives for our citizens to recognize the value that's here, because we want people to continue to invest here
and
stay here. Yes.
Yeah.
Stay here, invest here, start new businesses here. Yeah. And so, they're going to be looking for what those incentives are, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business, you're going to want to put your business somewhere. Right. And we want it to to Americus. That would be great. And
that's a priority
part
for
of
both
that.
of us.
Part of that is trying to make sure that even with the funds, how do we make sure that downtown and other parts of the city are ready for an entrepreneur to come in and say, hey, I'm willing to spend $1 million, but I can't spend $1 million in renovations. I can spend $1 million in these things. Right. How can you come alongside of me and create that space? And so it's a lot. And I thank y'all so much. Again, there's just so much going on. One of the things that's been a personal philosophy for me when I think about just how to engage in different things is I try to put myself in kind of 4 buckets, right? So you have the individual bucket, like I have individual responsibilities. I have to do certain things, right? I have to be self-disciplined. I have to pay attention. I have to continue to grow. Then there's a family responsibility, a family dynamic, right? I care for my family. What can I do as a family unit that I can't do just as an individual? But then you have kind of more of the organizational level. This is what I would call like nonprofits, even church things, right? This is a bucket. Okay, what can we do as a church, as an organization? How can we benefit? And then you have the governmental bucket, right? Which is, where do we find ourselves investing in our taxes and our time and our energy to be able to function well as a complete society? And one of the things, and I just want to give you some encouragement, is even as I hear about things, whether they're good or I don't understand, I always try to look at all four of those buckets and say, what am I doing first? Because a lot of times it's like everything goes in the bucket of the government. It's your responsibility to fix every single thing in my life. And the reality is that no, there are certain functions that you have that we actually need you to do and only focus on.
Right. And
And we need you to do that. But then even as an organization, as a church, what are we doing? Instead of saying, hey, we need you, government, no, we can do this. We can figure these things out together. So a lot of the social fabric and stuff, that's the responsibility of these organizations, these churches, to be able to help cultivate that. And then we say, hey, listen, we also need the government's help for this. But then I have my family dynamic and things like that. So that's always helped me. And so when I see something, again, I ask kind of those four questions. What am I doing? How am I engaging? Okay, where's my family at? What is our church doing? How can we be more involved in that? And then again, so I'm not coming to you asking questions that really the government's not supposed to be doing. And then having to put that on you instead of saying, so as a citizen, I'm saying, let's make sure that we're putting it in the right category of relationships for our society.
it usually comes out in this expression, well, the city is, or the city is not. And I often will ask citizens, well, who is the city? When we say the city, what do we mean by that? Aren't you a member of the city? Aren't you part of the city?
Yeah.
We're all part of the city, right?
Yeah.
We're all citizens fundamentally, and it's our community. It's a shared responsibility. It's not, because it's all too convenient to pass it off on the city, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, the trash on the street, for example, is created by citizens. The city did not create the garbage, typically. Now, I know sometimes a trash truck might spill some things, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who carelessly, selfishly pitch trash out of their car windows onto the city right-of-way or into people's yards. They're part of the city. So the question is, why is that happening? Why is that happening? And what can we do as a government to fix that? We really can't do very much. It's difficult for it because that's a human behavior. And so there are some subtleties and nuance to dealing with that are. I had somebody say, well, they just need to enforce the litter law. Well, but you can't be everywhere at the same time watching. Or the city needs to just pick it all up. Well, we try. I mean, we only have so many people in the street department and otherwise that can police all of the different areas and pick up the trash. But and I applaud citizens that I see who are policing their streets, their neighborhoods, walking. Maybe they pick up and they put in the dumpsters. They collect trash as they go. I have citizens. I won't call them out on the show, but I know people who do that. That's citizenship. That's good citizenship. That's not saying, well, I expect the city to come and pick up this trash. They're saying, oh, people have thrown this out. I'm walking by it. I can bend down and pick this up, and I'll carry it to the next dumpster on the curb. And put it away.
That's good. That's
good. And so it is a good question, John, to ask. You know, what bucket am I functioning? How am I doing in each of those? Of those buckets. It's a very good question.
Well, we're kind of getting a chance to wrap it up. I would want to give us another maybe 5 minutes and kind of just talk a little bit about the future as well, because we've been talking about things that we're doing right now and things that we need to focus on. So this is not necessarily like what are we doing right now, but what's the future? We've already kind of leaned into that a little bit, even with the college and being invested. What are some other things that you hope for, maybe even just as a citizen, as an individual, in the next 10, 15 years? Where do you see Americus? Where do you want it to go?
me go?
Yeah, you can go, and then Deidre, yeah.
I want sustainable growth, beneficial to all, to the common good, that will raise the standard of living for all. Sustainable growth, not the flash in the pan, not the pie in the sky sort of thing, but actual steady, sustainable growth. A lot of economists would tell you that a community fares better if they promote the development of 10 or 15 or 20 small businesses that open than one great, huge employer. Now, we all would love to have Amazon or somebody like that come. I mean, we would be on Easy Street then, wouldn't we? Our street paving would go away if we had, Amazon located. But the problem is that when we hinge our fortunes on one big company, one major employer, and we've seen this in the history of this community, when that company has trouble or when it folds, God forbid, the whole town folds with it. The mobile home industry was such an employer in the city of Americus. And due to some issues within the industry, it suffered, and America suffered as a result. And so, focusing on a single industry, a single employer to save the community is misguided, in my opinion. So the future to me looks like thriving entrepreneurship on a smaller scale, smaller entrepreneurs, locals preferably, who would benefit from a healthy entrepreneurial ecosystem within the city of Americus. And it's hard to get there, but I think we're making some moves in that direction. And I think that the city's role in that is that we create those living conditions that Deidre was talking about, the standard of living, the living conditions, good infrastructure, well-run, efficient governance, government, and the kind of communication that we're building now.
Yeah.
When an entrepreneur comes here, we need to be supportive. We're not talking about bending law or rewriting ordinances to suit them. What we're saying is that we want to make sure that they get their answers to their questions and that they can get them conveniently and not have to keep coming back and forth. And we're working on that.
Yeah.
The systems, I guess, is what I'm talking about. The processes.
Yeah.
That we want to make sure that they are absolutely barrier-free, that we're not putting barriers in place that discourage unnecessary barriers that discourage business. And that's a priority. So as we move forward, I think if we do that now, then we will promote that ecosystem that can flourish and not, again, I support the idea of bringing big employers here, large employers, people who are going to employ 200, 300 folks. The problem is that if that's all you do, then you neglect the smaller firms that can employ 10 or 15 people. And a multiple of smaller firms is a safer bet than a single sort of savior figure for the city.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because if one of those firms goes, you may only be dealing with 10 or 15 people. If the big company goes, what our big employers are like several hundred, hundreds of people, which can tank the economy of the community.
Yeah, that's good.
So small entrepreneurship and doing what we can to promote that.
That's good.
It's kind of my vision for, and a host of other things.
Yeah, of course.
But that kind of thing builds up the community for everybody because we all benefit from that.
Yeah. Deidre, what about you?
For me, I want the city to thrive. I want the entire city to thrive, not a subset of the city, not a specific race or denomination, I want the city to thrive. I want more than anything, for us to be nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this sounds superficial, but I love what I do. I love helping people. But I want us to be nicer to each other, nicer and kinder, more concerned about the next person, and just recognize that we're all different, but our differences make us better if we work together. I think the businesses are going to come when you come together as a community. All those other things I think will flow. Nobody wants to invest in a community where the city and the county are fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to invest in a community where you're separated by the color of your skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being honest, because the liability associated with that, from a big business or small business perspective, I don't want that liability.
Mm-hmm.
We have to learn how to love each other in the place and space that we're in, to lift other people up, and to lift each other up.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we all work together. There are a lot of organizations in this community that are working towards the same goal, in different ways for a pot of money. I want us to work together. Genuinely work together, not on the surface, not, saying to this person that we're working together and we're really not working together. We're really trying to undermine the next person. Especially from an organization standpoint, for us to really work together, to think about the least of us. And for me, one of the biggest things is substandard housing. We have an issue with substandard housing. The housing authority is working hard. There are a lot of individuals that are working hard to change that. But I just believe that people deserve to live in something that is livable. Doesn't have to be a penthouse. Now, that's not what I'm saying. Doesn't have to be $100,000. Doesn't have to be. I'm just saying that I just believe that just common decency, to live in a decent place. If you're going to rent it, it should be livable. Because individuals who are struggling are already struggling. So if the water is leaking in the house, the utility bill is going to be higher. So you just increase my burden.
Yeah.
If the ceiling has leaks and it's cold and I have to run my thermometer, all night instead of on and off, or it doesn't even have an on off, just an emergency, then my utilities are going to be higher, which means that this little pot of money just became less. And so really thinking about those types of things, that's really what I think about a lot, is the community coming together is one, and thinking about not the haves and the have-nots, but just thinking about everybody.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, listen, thank you all so much for coming and being a part of the podcast. I will tell you, coming in 2 years in, I feel privileged, because I feel like a lot of people's even prayers for the last 20 or 30 years are happening now. So I'm coming in and I feel this wave, and I'm like, wow, this is great for me. But there are people that have been praying for 20 years to see some of these things happen. And so I'm glad to be here. I see the progress that's being made. I mean, I see apartments trying to be built in downtown. I know housing is a big deal, and we want to create more of that. And so, because people are coming and they're looking at Americus,
the city doesn't invest in downtown apartments. We do indirectly,
right?
Actually, we do. I shouldn't say we don't invest, but it's not in the sense that a lot of citizens think that we're actually putting money in.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's in the infrastructure, it's in the supports, it's in through downtown development or the Main Street program. It's various ways we are investing. Creating that ecosystem, nourishing it.
That's right.
But to your point, those things are a reflection of people's faith in the community. So and she and I really do agree on this 100%. Part of our job is to make sure that people have faith in this community, that they believe in this community, and eliminate those things that cause them to distrust or not believe in this community. And I know citizens will probably watch this and say, well, you need to do this, this, and this. Yeah. And you're right. There are a lot of things that we need to do to increase that faith in the community. But what I'm seeing, what you're commenting on, is that people are faithful. They are showing signs of faith in the community. We wouldn't have Scoops. We wouldn't have all these businesses that have opened on Jackson Street in particular. If people did not have faith. And the first thing I thank them for when they open a business, thank you for having faith in our community. Thank you for having faith in this place, because your faith is not misplaced. Yeah.
But not just that, when you talk about downtown, we just had our craft beer festival and glass blowing, and it was the largest one that we've had. I think he sold over 1,000 tickets. Wow. And that was in Americus. That was in Americus.
And from all over the country.
There were, and I talked to individuals that were from other places that were here in our community. And our downtown K1 and his team do an excellent job of trying to foster or getting individuals to come downtown, just like the Women's Wine and Chocolate Walk. Is always sold out. First Fridays. There's a lot that's going on downtown that is actually cost absolutely nothing for our citizens. There are some things that cost, but there are things that are happening downtown and in Americas that cost nothing.
Our music fest. And we're getting a lot of traction with those events because people are looking at us and saying, that's a cool place. Yeah. That's a really neat place.
And especially when we have Sam Shortline to come through.
I mean,
to come through during that time.
So I guess the overarching theme here is, I know we have problems. She and I both know, and those things keep us up at night. We worry about those problems. We're not inattentive to it. But let's take a breath, extend grace, and think about the things for which we should be grateful. We have so much in this community that we should be grateful for. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Lots of things to be grateful for, because we have so many things that a lot of our other communities across this region. We were just at a Region 8 meeting, and you hear their problems, and then I think we're really blessed. I mean, we really should be grateful for the abundance that we have here, because we are really in a very good position right now. Yeah. So, and I'm hopeful.
Well, thank y'all. Yeah, absolutely. Thank y'all so much for coming again. This is, I'd love to continue with a lot of these stories. Diadra, it'd be really great to have you back on, even on just on a personal level, to get a chance to get to know you a little bit more. But again, I'm praying for you. I know the next 6 months to a year, you guys are working through the plans and you want to see these things happen. And the great thing is that you, like you said, you make adjustments, you make amendments when it's necessary. But taking a city of 15,000 people and trying to change the shift of it every day or week or month will not be effective. And so we got to give it enough time to see its effectiveness and then make those changes. And so I just want to let you know, I'm here. I'm excited about Americus. I want to see Americus thrive. I want to see it grow. But like you said, a steady growth, I think, is really, really great to have. So thank y'all so much for what you do. And hopefully we'll see each other out throughout our community.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you and what you do.
Thank you. All right. So we're good. Yeah. Woo. See? Not bad.
That wasn't that bad,
just push them over. Just push it over. There you go.
I'm still trying.